What? Nolan sounded shocked. She was spying on me. It doesn't matter what she was doing, Brooke replied sharply. What matters is that she overheard you discussing the pregnancy, the birth, and some kind of surprise for me. Is it true, Nolan? You're having a baby with another woman. What? Nolan exclaimed, double quotes, no, God, no, Brooke. This is some kind of crazy misunderstanding. Then explain it, Brooke demanded. Who is this woman? What were you talking about? Yeah, Nolan stammered. Look, it's hard to explain over the phone. I'll be right there. And yes, I'll try to bring her too, although I'm not sure she'll agree after this. Okay, Brooke said. I'll be waiting. She hung up the phone and turned to me. Her eyes were a mixture of fear, anger, and confusion. He's denying everything, I said. Of course. What else do you expect? Wait, Mom. Brooke shook her head. Let's hear Heist's explanation first. What explanation could there possibly be? I was outraged. I heard them discussing the pregnancy, the birth, the positions. He said he'd there for her, that he would support her. There could be another explanation for everything. Brooke said quietly. There had to be another explanation. I could see that she was desperately clinging to the hope that this was all just a terrible misunderstanding. I wanted to keep her from being disappointed, but I didn't know how. I heard what I heard. We sat, in silence, waiting for Nolan to arrive. Brooke was pale and tense, glancing at her watch every now and then. I held her hand, trying to be supportive, but I felt like she barely noticed my presence. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, but was really about 20 minutes, we heard the sound of a car pulling up, 2 doors slammed. So he really had brought that woman with him. Brooke jumped up and rushed to the door. I rose to follow, ready to protect my daughter if I had to. The door opened and Nolan walked in. Behind him was the blonde woman I'd seen this afternoon. Now she looked worried and a little embarrassed. Nolan began. This is Helen. Helen, this is my wife, Brooke. Nice to meet you, the woman said, extending her hand. Although I would have preferred to meet under different circumstances. Brooke mechanically shook her hand, but her gaze was fixed on Nolan. Explain, she demanded. Who is she? Why were you discussing pregnancy and childbirth? Nolan took a deep breath. Helen is a doula, he said. A specialist in pregnancy and childbirth support. A doula. Brooke frowned. Why do we need a doula? Nolan and Helen looked at each other. Why don't we sit down? Helen suggested. This is a bit of a tricky situation. We all walked into the living room. Brooke and I sat on the couch. Nolan sat in the chair across from us, and Helen stood as if ready to leave at any moment. Brooke, Nolan began looking directly at his wife. I know you're pregnant. Brooke gasped, her hand instinctively resting on her stomach. What? She whispered. How? I found fetus in the bathroom 2 weeks ago, Nolan explained. You hid it, but not very well. Why didn't you say anything? Brooke asked. Because I realized why you were hiding it, Nolan replied softly. After what happened last time, you're afraid. Afraid to hope again and to lose again. Brooke's lips quivered. I stared at both of them in amazement. Brooke was pregnant and hiding it even from me. I wanted to help. Nolan continued, but I didn't know how. Then I heard from a colleague about doulas. Women who specialize in pregnancy and childbirth support. They help with fears, prepare for labor, physically and emotionally. That's true, Helen interjected. Many women, especially those who have experienced a miscarriage, turn to doulas. We don't replace doctors, but we can provide the support that medics are often unable to provide. I found Helen for our referrals. Nolan said she's one of the best in Lebanon. Her schedule is booked months in advance, but she agreed to help us. When I told her about our situation, it was supposed to be a surprise. He continued, looking guilty at Brooke. I wanted to wait until you were ready to tell me about the pregnancy yourself, and then introduce you to Helen. Today we discussed the details of our partnership, different techniques that might help you during labor. Brooke looked at her husband with wide open eyes. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. Did you know all this time? She whispered. And you didn't say a word. I wanted you to be ready to talk about it. Nolan answered. I knew how scared you were. I watched the scene, feeling the ground slipping away from under my feet. I guess I'd misunderstood. Nolan wasn't cheating on Brooke. He had a surprise in store for her. A specialist to help her deal with her pregnancy after she'd suffered a miscarriage. And I'd ruined it. So Brooke said slowly, turning to Helen. You discussed my pregnancy, my labor. Yes, Helen nodded. Nolan wanted to know what techniques could help you both during labor, how he could support you, what positions would ease pain, how to breathe properly. And talking about the first trimester, I asked, still trying to make sense of the situation. I explained to Nolan that after the first trimester, the risk of miscarriage is greatly reduced, Helen replied. That it was usually a safe time to start telling family and friends about the pregnancy. And you were talking about a surprise for Brooke, I remembered. Yes, Nolan nodded. The surprise was supposed to be my knowledge of the pregnancy and Helen's help. I wanted to wait for Brooke to tell me, and then surprise her by telling her that I'd already prepared everything. Brooke covered her face with her hands and cried. Nolan immediately moved over to the couch and hugged her. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't mean to upset you. I thought it would help. You don't understand, Brooke sobbed. I was so afraid to tell you. I was afraid you'd worry too, that something would go wrong again. And you knew all along, and you prepared this gift. For me. She lifted her tear-stained face and kissed her husband. I sat stunned, not knowing what to say. I felt terrible. Because of my suspicions, my distrust of Nolan, I had ruined such an important moment for Brooke. I think I'd better leave, Helen said quietly. You two need to talk in private. No, please stay. Brooke turned to her. There are so many things I need to ask you about the pregnancy, about the birth. I'm so scared. Of course, Helen smiled softly. That's what I'm here for. But maybe some other time when things are more calmer. Yes, you're right. Brooke nodded. Butari, you sure you'll work with me despite all of this? Of course, Helen assured her. I've already promised Nolan, and I'm not reneging on my promises. She said goodbye and walked out. It was just 3 of us. Brooke, Nolan, and me. There was a long pause. I'd better go too, I said, finally standing up. I'm so sorry for ruining everything. Mom. Brooke pulled away from Nolan and looked at me. There were still tears in her eyes, but now there was disappointment in them too. Why did you just assume the worst? Why couldn't you just ask Nolan who this woman was? Yeah, I stammered, not knowing what to say. I was worried about you. I heard them talking and I thought, you thought that my husband, the man I've lived with for 5 years, would cheat on me and have a child on the side. Brooke finished. For me, that he'd be heartless enough to discuss it in our own home, and stupid enough to call it a surprise to me. I kept my mouth shut. When she said it out loud, my suspicions did sound absurd. Brew, I'm really sorry, I said quietly. I didn't mean to ruin your surprise. I was just worried about you. Worrying is one thing, Brooke replied, spying on my husband. Jumping to wild conclusions and rushing in with accusations is quite another. She was right, and I knew it. I was out of line. I'll go, I said, heading for the exit. I'm sorry I ruined your moment. Congratulations on the pregnancy. I'm really happy for both of you. Thank you, Brooke replied shortly. I turned around at the door. Is there anything I can do to make this right? I asked. I'd like Toad there for you during your pregnancy too. Help? Not now, Mom. Brooke shook her head. I need space right now. We need space. I'll call you when I'm ready to talk. I nodded, feeling tears come to my eyes. I wanted to hug my daughter, to tell her how happy I was for her, how happy I was to have a grandson or granddaughter. But I realized that now was not the time. I had done too much. I love you, I said. Then I'll be waiting for your call. Brooke nodded but didn't say anything. Nolan stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder, protective, supportive. I walked out of the house feeling devastated and ashamed. Getting into my car, I didn't start the engine right away. I needed time to realize everything that had happened. I was so sure that Nolan was cheating on Brooke that I didn't even allow myself to think that there could be another explanation. I was ready to destroy my daughter's marriage based on nothing more than another hard conversation I misinterpreted. And now Brooke is pregnant. I'm going to have a grandson or granddaughter. But will Brooke ever be able to forgive me for what I did today? Would I be able to be a part of their child's life after all this? I started the car and slowly pulled onto the road. My head felt heavy with thoughts and regrets. I thought about what Brooke had said, that I needed to learn to respect their boundaries. Maybe she was right. Maybe I really was meddling too much in her life, thinking I knew better. On the way home, I stopped at the park where Brooke and I used to walk often when she was little. No one was there now. It was too late for children's games. I sat down on a bench and let myself cry for real. I cried for the daughter's trust that I had lost, about the grandson or granddaughter I might not get to see as often as I'd like, for Nolan, whom I never appreciated, and about myself, a woman who was so sure she was right, that she couldn't see the truth in front of her. It's been a week since I blew it. A week of silence. Brooke hadn't called, hadn't responded to my texts. I dialed her number several times, but when I heard my daughter's voice on the answering machine, I hesitated to leave a message. What could I say? I'm sorry I suspected your husband of cheating. I'm sorry I ruined the surprise he was preparing for you. The words seemed empty and meaningless. On Monday, I couldn't take it anymore and drove to their house. I parked nearby, watching the house from my car like the ultimate stalker. Brooke's car was nowhere to be seen. She was probably at work. Nolan's black SUV was parked there. Maybe he was working from home. I hesitated to ring the doorbell. What would I tell Nolan? After I'd basically accused him of cheating on me, spying on him, ruining his surprise for Brooke. What words could I say to make things right? I left feeling even more depressed. When I got home, I called Doris, my little sister. She always had a way with words. Did you really do it? Doris gasped when she heard my story. Vivian, how could you? I thought I was protecting my daughter, I said for probably the 100th time. No, you weren't, Doris said sharply. You were interfering. You always do. You've never been able to stop Vivian. Not with Brooke. Not with Nolan. Not with Anyim. Her words hurt, but I knew she was right. What do I do, Doris? I asked Dot, how do I fix this? For starters, give them space, my sister replied. If Brooke says she needs time, respect that. Don't call every day. Don't come over uninvited. Just wait. But what if she doesn't want to see me at all? My voice shook. What if I can't be a part of her child's life? It'll be your fault, Vivian, Doris said harshly. and you'll have to live with that. But I don't think it will come to that. Brooke loves you no matter what. Just give her time and space. And when she's ready to talk, apologize for real. Don't make excuses. Don't pass the blame. Just admit you were wrong. After talking to Doris, I felt devastated, but strangely calm. She was right. I need to give Brooke time, and when she's ready, I'll apologize. Sincerely, no excuses. Wednesday night, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting company, and I was surprised to find Nolan on the doorstep. Vivian. He nodded in greeting. May I come in? I stepped back silently, letting him into the house. Nolan looked tired, shadows under his eyes. Did Brooke know you were here? I asked as we walked into the living room. Yes, he answered, sitting down in a chair. She asked me to talk to you. Asked you? I couldn't hide my surprise. Why not by herself? Because she's still too upset, Nolan explained. And I need to talk to you about some things. I nodded, preparing myself for the worst. Maybe they decided that I wouldn't see their baby again. Or maybe they'd moved to another town away from me. Bru's pregnant, Nolan began. 13 weeks. The first trimester went well, and the doctors say everything's fine. But she's still very worried. It's only natural after a miscarriage. I understand, I said quietly. No, Vivian, you don't understand. Nolan shook his head. Brooke isn't. Just worried. She's under constant stress. She's afraid she's going to lose the baby again. And your, meddling Hazenly made it worse. I lowered my eyes, feeling a lump come up in my throat. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I know, Nolan said suddenly. Soft, and Brooke knows too. But you see, it's not just about that. It's about constant control, about breaking boundaries. You've always treated Brooke like that, like a child who can't make her own decisions. I wanted to object to say that I wasn't, that I was just taking care of my daughter. But the words stuck in my throat because somewhere deep down inside, I knew Nolan was right. Brooke and I talked a lot, he continued. And we made a decision. We need time and space, at least for the rest of the pregnancy. You want me to have no contact with Brooke until the baby is born? I was horrified. Not exactly. Nolan shook his head. We want you to respect our boundaries. No surprise visits. No interrogations about what we do and how we do it. No advice unless we ask for it. I nodded, realizing these were Ferdman's though. Painful for me. But will I be able to see Brooke? I asked. Around during the pregnancy. Of course, Nolan answered. If you follow these rules, Brooke loves you, Vivian. She wants you to be a part of our baby's life, but not on any terms. I understand, I said quietly. I'll tree. Good. Nolan stood up. Then Brooke will be expecting you on Sunday for lunch 2 o'clock. If you agree to our terms, of course I do. I stood up too. Tell Brooke I really look forward to seeing her. Nolan nodded and headed for the exit. He turned around at the door. One more thing, Vivian. I really do love your daughter more than anything in the world. I would never do anything to hurt her. I hope someday you'll believe that. After he left, I sat in silence for a long time, thinking about our conversation. Nolan was right. I'd always treated Brooke like a child who couldn't make her own decisions. I was controlling, meddling, giving unsolicited advice, and I never thought about how it was affecting her. And now she's pregnant. She's getting ready to be a mom. And if I want to be a part of her baby's life, I need to change. Learn to respect her boundaries, her decisions, her choices. I pulled out a photo album of Brooke's baby pictures. Here she is, newborn in my arms. Here she is taking her first steps, clinging to my fingers. Here she is going to first grade, proudly carrying a huge bouquet. Here's her high school graduation, a beautiful young woman with a serious look in her eyes. When did she grow up? When did she stop being my little girl and become a grown woman ready to start her own family? And why hadn't I noticed it? Sunday came simultaneously too fast and agonizingly slow. I was so excited to see Brooke if it, I changed clothes 3 times that morning, not knowing what to wear. I finally settled on a simple blue dress. Brooke had always said that color suited me. I bought a bouquet of her favorite lies and a small gift for the baby. A soft toy, a giraffe with a long neck and kind eyes. Nothing special, just a token of attention. As we pulled up to their house, I felt my heart pounding with excitement. What if Brooke is still mad? What if our meeting turned into another awkward, tense conversation? I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. Everything would be fine. I'll be on my best behavior. No unsolicited advice. No questions about what they're doing or how they're doing it. Just genuine joy for their future child and a willingness to be supportive if they asked. Brooke opened the door. She looked better than last time. Her cheeks were pinker. There was a sparkle in her eyes. Though her belly was still barely visible under the loose dress, she had that special glow that pregnant women have. "Mom." She smiled, but the smile didn't touch her eyes. "Come in." "Hi, honey." I handed her the bouquet. "These are for you." "Thank you," Brooke said softly as she took the flowers from my hands. "Come on in. Nolan's just finishing up dinner." I stepped into the living room, trying to hide the nerves fluttering in my chest. On the coffee table were some books and pamphlets on pregnancy and childbirth, alongside a neat notebook filled with Brooke's handwriting. She'd always been organized, meticulous even. She liked to plan everything down to the smallest detail. "Would you like some tea?" she asked, walking back in from the kitchen where she placed the flowers. "I'd love some," I replied with a small smile, taking a seat on the edge of the couch, unsure of where to place my hands. Normally, I would have stood up, browsed through her notes, maybe offered advice about preparing for labor. But not today. Not with our relationship this fragile. Brooke returned with 2 steaming mugs. Nolan followed behind her with a plate of cookies. "Hello, Vivian," he said, nodding politely. "Glad you could come." "Thank you for inviting me," I said. "And thank you for stopping by the other day. It meant a lot," he added before heading back into the kitchen, giving US space. The room fell into a thick silence. "How are you feeling?" I asked eventually. Nolan said the first trimester went well. Brooke nodded. "Yeah. The morning sickness is easing up and the doctor says everything looks good." "That's wonderful," I said, genuinely relieved. "I'm really happy for you, Brooke." She gave a small nod but didn't speak. Instead, she studied me quietly, like she was waiting for something. "I brought a little gift for the baby," I said, reaching into my bag and pulling out a soft toy giraffe. "It's nothing fancy, just—" "Mom," she interrupted gently. "Can we talk honestly for a moment?" I froze with the toy in my hand, a quiet panic settling in. I nodded slowly, placing the giraffe beside me on the couch. "Nolan told me about your conversation," Brooke began. "About the boundaries. I agree with everything you two discussed," I said quickly. "I know I've overstepped. I'm working on it, I really am. It's not just about Helen," she said, shaking her head. "This has been going on for years. You've always thought you knew better about everything, from my career to my marriage." I opened my mouth to defend myself, to say I was only ever trying to protect her, but the words stuck. Because she was right. I had judged, criticized, and tried to steer her life in ways I had no right to. "You're right," I admitted quietly. "I've been too controlling, and I regret it." Brooke looked surprised. She clearly hadn't expected me to admit it. I want to change, I said. For you. For your baby. I want to be the kind of grandmother my grandchildren are happy to see, not someone who brings tension. Her lips trembled into a weak smile. I'd like that, Mom. But I need to know you'll respect our boundaries. No more criticism, no more listening in on our conversations, no more unsolicited advice. I promise, I said. I'll be there when you ask. And I'll step back when you need space. And I'll really try to trust Nolan. He loves you. I can see that now. She studied me again, then slowly nodded. Okay, let's try again. Nolan came out carrying a dish of lasagna. Lunch is ready, he announced. I hope you're hungry, Vivian. I am, I replied, smiling. And please just call me Vivian. His eyebrows raised in mild surprise, but he nodded. All right, Vivian. As we walked to the dining room, I noticed an extra place set. Are we expecting someone else? I asked. Brooke glanced at Nolan. Yes. Helen should be here any minute. Helen? My cheeks burned as memories of our first awkward meeting came rushing back. She's agreed to continue working with us, Brooke said gently. And I thought it would be nice if you two got to know each other properly. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Brooke went to answer it, and Nolan and I were left in silence again. I'm really glad you came, he said after a moment. Brooke needs you especially now, even if she won't admit it. I'll be there for her, I said, if you both let me. We will, he said with a soft smile. Just give us the space to live our lives our way. I promise. Brooke returned with Helen, who looked a little tense but smiled as she extended her hand. Hello, Vivian. It's nice to meet you officially. Likewise, I replied, shaking her hand. And I want to apologize. I misunderstood and overreacted. It's okay, she said. What matters is that we're past it now. We sat down to lunch and talked for the first time in a long while. About the baby, the nursery, plans for the future. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet, Brooke said. We'll find out at the next ultrasound. My money's on a girl, Nolan said, beaming. Just as beautiful as her mom. I think it's a boy, Brooke replied with a grin. Whatever the baby decides, Helen added. The most important thing is health. Absolutely, I agreed. I held my tongue, even though I wanted to chime in with stats I knew about gender and pregnancy. But this wasn't my place anymore. I had to learn to listen more and advise less. After Helen left, Nolan walked her out, leaving Brooke and me alone again. She's very professional, I said. I'm glad you have her. She's been a big help for both of us. Nolan's learning how to be supportive during labor, and that's meant a lot to me. I'm sorry I ruined the surprise, I said. You didn't ruin it, Brooke replied softly. The moment may have been lost, but the important part remains. She's staying, and she's helping. We sat in a rare, peaceful silence. I'm glad you came today, she said at last. And that we talked. I've missed that. Me too, I whispered. And I promise I'm going to be better. She leaned over and hugged me. I hugged her back, tears burning my eyes. I love you, Mum, she whispered. No matter what, I love you too, sweetheart. Always. Later, as we sat on the couch flipping through ultrasound photos, Brooke asked suddenly, Would you like to come to the next appointment with us? When we find out the baby's gender? I blinked, surprised. If you want me to be there, I'd be honored. We'd love for you to come, Nolan said, settling beside her. It's a special moment. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Thank you. I'd love that. As I left their house, I felt something inside me loosen the weight. Of guilt, of regret. At home, I pulled out a box of Brooke's old baby clothes. Tiny socks, hats, hand-knit sweaters from her grandmother. Maybe she'd want to use them. Maybe not. That would be her choice, and I'd respect it. Because this wasn't about things. It was about rebuilding trust, letting go of control, loving without conditions. And finally, I was learning how.